All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Oh, yeah, we're here. I know. Don't panic. We're right here. Everybody's in their respective positions. Yeah. Good morning to all the ships at sea.
Morning.
Good morning. As we work everything out, admittedly, we're still working.
Morning.
The nice thing is, all of you have shared with us your opinions about everything on this
Morning.
show. I have to say, though, John, good morning to you.
Morning.
Kim, good morning to you.
Morning.
Tony is here in the studio this morning.
Morning.
Which is really exciting. Good morning to all the kids on the chat. Calvin Wong, who... He really should have a producer title. He gives me so much content.
Morning.
Tom, who's here every morning.
Morning.
Eric, Sharon,
Morning.
Ricky,
Morning.
Kyle,
Morning.
Becky, Adam, Maud,
Morning.
Michael,
Morning.
Nick,
Morning.
Craig.
Morning.
So you guys can monitor the sound as we try to balance all the different sound levels. It's a process. As I told you, this studio is brand new. It's not even finished yet. So there are a lot of elements here. In fact, we're having some issues with certain things. The thing that the thing that's funny, and then I'll tell you what our plan is for the week, and I do have a couple of things to tell you.
There's a plan?
There is a plan. I don't know that we'll follow it, but there is a plan. The plan involves, Thanksgiving and all of that stuff. So we
have processes and protocols and standards.
We do. There's a lot of stuff going on that you don't see. So we're busy putting out a lot of fires that you're not even necessarily aware of. Meantime, we're trying to put out some of the fires that you are aware of, like level situation, because everything is, coming in at different levels. Camera, too close, too far, too straight on. But that's the banner, which is a pain, looks good to some people, doesn't look good to others. Now you can see the Mark merch, but the banner kind of doesn't work now. So there's all of that going on, and we have to vibe that out on our own. And I will say this, and this is true, I don't mind hearing from you guys on what you like, what you try this was too hot, the levels were a little off. I appreciate that, actually. I don't know that John appreciates it as much as I do.
That's not fake. That's real.
So
Can you let him finish, sir?
All I would say is that thank you, but some of the stuff that you notice, we're aware of. Some of the stuff you notice, it's good for me anyway to hear it so that we can try to make some
Although it is kind of like hearing from 1,000 mother-in-laws.
It is, but
on a daily
basis.
This
This is the difference. I see you as, partial owners of the team. Your customers, if you want to think of it that way. Your supporters, but it's not just a customer relationship. I see you with agency at the table. But it is true that everybody speaking at once can seem overwhelming. So as we have this shakedown period, this really is a shakedown period because the studio's new, and I've told you, everything's not even hooked up yet. We're having some major issues with some of the stuff that's going on related to audio. As we have the shakedown period, I appreciate your patience and, and I appreciate your input. So it's fine. We are getting a lot of it, though, and sometimes it feels like a fire hose of input. Kim is rocking. What's that?
We could try ignoring it, sir.
We could try ignoring it. And I must tell you that we try to respond.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
To as many.
Pretend nothing has happened and hope everything turns out all right in the morning.
We kind of did a version of that today on audio levels, but they're better, right?
We'll find out.
Okay, good. And Tony is here, everyone. Sorry.
Where is he?
Tony, come, just
Get yourself
at least
over
make
there.
a cameo.
Tony, hi.
Yeah, Tony is here.
That's not fake.
Yeah,
That's real.
that's not fake. That's real. By the way, I was
not fake.
I was
That's
watching
real.
Dr. Fauci this morning. He was speaking at the White House podium, and I actually thought of maybe sharing some stuff with you from Fauci. Although basically it's the same message, but it's
The winter is here. Be careful.
yeah, right. It's the winter is here. They're expecting a winter spike. They're encouraging people to be boosted. They showed and referred to some statistics that essentially expose the fact that the unvaccinated are having far more grim outcomes when it comes to COVID than the
Shocking.
yeah. The other thing I would say is related to yesterday's chat that didn't show up, the live chat, in our video if you're watching the replay until much later in the day. The reason for that, and the camera may be moving a little bit. Tony is working in the studio, so it moves the camera a little bit. The reason for that is because you'll remember yesterday we talked about COVID and we talked about vaccinations. And when you do that, the AI, which is, thus far I'd say, wouldn't you say, John, AI is not our friend. The YouTube AI?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, go
AI
ahead.
hasn't decided whether or not it likes you.
Yeah. So the you okay? Yeah, you got it. The AI sees vaccination, they see COVID, and what do? They go, uh-oh, this is more disinformation, blah, blah, blah. And they literally pull, first of all, the chat, and then they did something else, right, John, that you had to deal with?
They suspended monetization, so ad money
Yeah,
went away.
so they demonetized that. By the way, your level is a little bit low, John. You could probably pump it up. Thank you, Mike. I'll acknowledge super stickers and all the donations a little bit later. But I just wanted to give you a sense of, this is the stuff we're dealing with, even as we try to deal with those things that are related to the show itself. So there's some of that. Now, the last thing about the show that I want to tell you and ask you is about this week. The thing I want to tell you is that we're going to do shows for you all this week, all through Thanksgiving, every day, full show. You'll get the entire thing. The reason we're doing it is because I want you to know that we're committed to doing this show for you. I appreciate your support, and I will produce shows every single day through the holiday this week.
Wait, you're going to produce the shows?
When I say produce, I mean I'll produce my appearance.
Oh, I thought I had a vacation.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Can you let him finish?
Yeah, just let me finish. And John has generously agreed to produce the shows, and Kim has generously agreed to do the news for the shows, and she's on vacation with her family. And so you can see her family lives in a plush, is that a Manhattan living room? Where is
that is Seattle. You can see the Space Needle.
Wow.
Off to the right.
Those people who are able to look at YouTube right now, you can see it.
That is not where I am. I am somewhere in Oregon. But that's a really nice shot of the Space Needle.
That really is.
And so I thought, well, why not?
Let's have Thanksgiving there, wherever there is.
That's right. Frasier. It looks like
exactly. It is. It's very Frasier. Good call. Very Frasier.
Frasier's in the kitchen working on the turkey.
You know Niles.
Yes.
The McAllisters are coming over. Niles, the McAllisters are coming over. Please clean up the living room. So that is Kim's story. She will be here as well. So we're going to be with you all week. So if you've got nothing to do on Thanksgiving, please come through and we'll have a lot of fun. Maybe it'll be a little lighter and I think a lot of fun. So join us. And now the very last thing is related to an ask. Of course, I ask you to support the show. Many of you are already Patreon supporters. Thank you. There are ways to send us super stickers and super chats right here in YouTube right now as you watch live. You can do that as well. But here's what I'd love for everybody to do. Before your Thanksgiving dinner, you get everybody to get their phone out. You have them get on YouTube. Say, look, I know this is crazy, but I want you to do this favor for me. It doesn't cost anything. Go to The Mark Thompson Show on YouTube and subscribe. You don't have to listen to the show ever. Just go to The Mark Thompson Show on YouTube, subscribe, and you never have to see it again. That would do me a huge solid. And that is my goal this Thanksgiving, to pick up more subs, as they call it. This is, by the way, another world for me. You know, I've worked at huge radio stations and television stations all my career, and so it's really weird for me to sit here and kind of ask you to help out in this way. But
Do you know who I am?
Yes,
I'm
but
kind of a big deal.
I do want desperately for us to break through certain barriers on YouTube in terms of subscriptions, and that way we can achieve monetization that will help keep the lights on, help keep Kim in money and John in money and Tony and myself. And so, as I've told you before, I'm not taking any money for my part right now, but we have expenses. We just rebuilt the studio, so you can see that there are costs. So that's it on everything, and thank you for joining us. Yeah.
That's an expensive tarp, let me just tell you.
Yes, this tarp actually was $88, I believe, was the cost of the tarp. So that may be one of the less expensive items. Niners were amazing last night. I mean, they looked like the Super Bowl team we were expecting them to be in week 1. The Niners, it was a beatdown of the Cardinals. It didn't look like a beatdown initially, but 38-10 the final. And they played in Mexico. It was algo especial, you know? It was super magnifico. And they did a thing on Monday Night Football, and I had to run some of it, except for the fact that I'll get all kind of copyright strikes on YouTube, where all the bumps, like the bump music, it was all like mariachi stuff, and at halftime they did. So they kind of did a tip of the hat to the Mexican culture. I thought it was kind of cute. It's a shame it wasn't much of a game. You know, once you get out to the second half, as I say, the Niners were so dominant. But if you're a Niners fan, it was great to see it. And Jimmy G, gotta say, I mean, as handsome as ever. And he did a number with the ball. I mean, where's my feels great? Oh, we don't. You've taken it out. You do something. I don't have my feels great.
Feels great, baby.
Feels great, baby.
No, it's not. It's not coming out.
Oh, Jimmy G.
Well, you know, he has to rest, right? Injuries and all.
It's very low. Oh, maybe I can bring it. I can bring up the level a little bit. You want me to?
Feels great, baby.
Oh, there it is. I can bring it all the way up. Will that help?
Feels great, baby. Feels great, baby.
Now I have to. But that's as high as it'll go.
Feels great, baby.
All right, Tony's working on it. Okay. Anyway, Jimmy G was handsome as ever. He hit Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey for serious yards and serious touchdown. Of course, George Kittle. It was a big, big night for the Niners. So congratulations. The Niners have won 3 in a row, and they're 4-0 in the NFC West, which matters. So those of you who are into football, it'd be great to see the Niners in the postseason. They are looking Super Bowl champions right now. So if they can turn in that kind of performance against some of the tougher teams in the NFL, that'd be impressive. And they've got a running game that seems, more than respectable right now. So there's all of that. That's what happened with the Niners in World Cup over in Qatar, the wealthy, oil-rich Qatar. We talked about them a little bit yesterday. The U.S. and Wales played to a 1-1 tie. There was a late Gareth Bale penalty, and the U.S. men's national team marked their long-awaited return to the big stage. The U.S. marked their return with a 1-1 draw against Wales to open their play in Group B. An excellent goal from Tim Weah, is that how he says his name? In the first half was later canceled by a Gareth Bale penalty kick conversion late in the second half. Yeah, it really came down to that penalty kick. I saw the penalty kick. I didn't realize that it was the first goal was so well executed. Anyway, the story is they get a point for that, and it's a point system that basically dictates how you do in World Cup. So those of you who are World Cup fans, you can explain to me exactly what's happening. I'm learning it as we go. It is cool, but the sad part is it's against the backdrop of this repressive regime in Qatar. And, wasn't there that story, John, about the fact, and Kim as well, I mean, you've seen it, the pro-LGBTQ armbands are not going to be permitted, right? The FIFA decision is to not allow players to wear these pro-LGBTQ armbands. And
they're called the One Love Band.
Yeah.
For unity. And they said if you wear this armband, you will be fined a significant amount of money. So the players were ready to accept the fine and say, we're doing it anyway. And then something happened and they all decided not to do it.
And there was a member of the media who wore a rainbow T-shirt who was detained by security. He finally got in, but he was thrown up against the wall, had to look at a camera while they evaluated him from some remote location.
They don't like protest
Happiness.
over there.
They don't like
happiness. They're not good with protest. They're a deeply religious, conservative country. But the religiosity, and I suppose religiosity is a ding word, and degree to which they enforce that religiosity in everyday life and in culture, it's elastic, I mean, and you'd think visitors would kind of really be given a wide berth. In this case, it's so high profile that I think the government made this deal with FIFA. And as you know, FIFA is completely corrupt. So, as I mentioned yesterday, and we'll move on, you have a deeply religious government. They crack the whip over protest. They crack the whip over homosexuality. They crack the whip over any kind of media that in any way goes up against the government narrative. So in that whip cracking, you have this great sport, which is soccer. So you have these athletes who are, I think they're pure of spirit for the most part when it comes to competing. It's a shame, but to enjoy them, you kind of have to slug through some of the other stuff, which is, let's face it, it's kind of loathsome. Let me help you get your head around it. When you watch the Olympics and you see them in China, China is also a horrible authoritarian regime. So Russia is a horrible authoritarian regime. They've had the Olympics. So it's not as though the host countries of all of our sports that we enjoy so much are, pure as the driven snow, and all of a sudden we come up to Qatar and they're a problem. That's just not the way it is. We're kind of used to, whether we want to admit it or not, overlooking or in some way not focusing on the brutal regimes that are oftentimes making up the governments of these host countries. So,
and let's not forget 6,500 migrant workers were killed building those stadiums.
That's right. No, it's exactly right. And I mean, the conditions are brutal. And I told you about that loan system that they have. A lot of them have to take loans to, and they're paying back those loans. You have to pay
to actually get the job to get in the country. In a lot of cases, even in the Emirates, what they'll do, the employer will take their passport away, in effect, making them slave labor.
Meantime, the Monterey Bay Desalination Project, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you. We've talked a lot about desal and water in California. There's a desal project that was just approved. There are a lot of environmental concerns, and there were even community concerns related to these underserved communities essentially bearing the environmental brunt of the setup of that desal plant. But it got the go-ahead. So Monterey will be the site for this desalination plant. And this place, Marina, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but there's a place around Monterey Bay where essentially...
It's the city of Marina.
Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm. And it's really populated by a lot of people who don't speak English. The community in Marina is only 22,000, but they have a regional landfill and sewage plant there already, and now they're going to have a desal plant there. You get the idea. It's viewed as a community without the political clout to push back. That said, there's also an urgency to get this desalination plant built. So that's the situation, and that doesn't even speak to the environmental concerns, which we have touched on here before. So all of that is going on in Monterey Bay. So more in a moment. I want to talk to my number one guy. So, Tony, I don't have this. Just literally almost can't be heard. Okay. So anything we can do to even make it like it was yesterday, that would be great. Just for the balance of the show. So I am. Normally we'd have a lot of things that we don't have. So 2 steps forward, 1 step back, a little bit on this show. The one thing that we do have, and I applaud him every day for his dedication and for the work he does on behalf of his clients. Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Hi, Steve Moskowitz.
Good morning.
Hi, Mark. Thanks very much, and I'm very honored to be part of your group. And
I saw you yesterday with your surprise guest, Sherry, from the old radio station.
Yes, Sherry was the executive producer for Nikki, and she joined our law firm yesterday. So I'm very, very happy. We're reforming after the carnage from radio station X, and we're going to come out to something really tremendous. And all the listeners just love Sherry, and the position should be in the firm where a lot of your listeners and Nikki's and Chip's will be able to talk to her now. So I thought that everybody would win on that one as well.
I think you're right. And Sherry is immensely talented. We all know her to be that. And it's a really, really cool addition for you. And it's great news for us. I wanted to ask you a question about taxes real quick, about the situation that I think a lot of us find ourselves in, which can affect many of us who've lost jobs or who've had interruptions in work of one sort or another. And that is just literally not being able to pay the tax bill.
Mark, that's a real common problem. And a lot of times people make the mistake of sticking their head in the sand, not filing the return, running and hiding, and it doesn't work, especially now that the government's getting heavy-handed, not to mention the new 87,000 IRS agents that they're hiring. President Biden has announced that for every dollar he spends on the IRS, he expects multiple dollars back in tax collected. Look at the way the government's giving away the money. And the bottom line is, if you owe some taxes, most people just have no idea what to do. Deer in the headlights, water over their head. They don't know what to do. But we do. In almost all cases, we can do everything for you. And there's a lot of good deals, like an offer in compromise. You just pay in part and they forgive the rest. Nightmare's over. Or a monthly payment plan. Or ask him to forgive the penalties. A lot of times, the penalties and the interest wind up more than the taxes. And then another thing called the hardship deferral, where somebody has a change in circumstances, they lose a job or a business, or somebody gets sick. You say, look, leave me alone for a while. Let me get back on my feet, and then we'll make a deal. There's a lot of good deals, but don't wait until they come to your customers and say, don't pay you, pay them, or wipe out your bank account or wipe out your paycheck. There's just so much better solution right here for you.
I'm wondering if when people are in a situation like that, they're worried that they're going to have to testify in some situation. Oftentimes you can just go, you'll do the talking. In other words, your office represents them.
Almost all of the cases, we do everything for the person. They don't have to talk to the government, deal with them, have anything to do with them. That's almost all the cases.
So you should reach Steve Moskowitz to be your advocate, 888-TAX-DEAL. He's a friend of the show, and he's really, you can see how he's animated our ability to come to you every day, but more than that, he can provide for you the aggressive representation you need, regardless of your tax situation. 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. And you can reach him online as well, MoskowitzLLP.com. It's MoskowitzzLLP.com, MoskowitzzLLP.com. Steve, thanks so much, and thanks again for adding Sherry to your mix. I think that was a great hire. She's so talented.
Oh, I'm thrilled, honored, so happy to have Sherry. Sherry and I worked together on radio station X. She was there 28 years, and I worked with her that whole time. Obviously, that was her after kindergarten job, but we worked together the whole time. And not only super efficient, but just such a nice and good person.
And she was, of course, after 28 years of fine service, she was, I'm sure, given some substantial compensation package.
You get nothing.
Or that. All right. Thank you, Steve. We'll talk to you next hour. Thanks, Steve Moskowitz,
Thanks, Mark.
everyone.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Tony is here in studio with me. That's why we don't have quite the access to all the stuff we normally have, because we're in the middle of, once again, tweaking things as we're on the air. And this is the email I'm sure I'll get. Mark, and you can reach me at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
Why don't you have Tony come and do the work before or after you go on? Well, the answer is he did. He's been in traffic for 2 hours this morning, okay? We love you, Tony.
Here comes the complaint line.
That's right. I'm trying to, you see how I try to head off the complaints ahead of time?
Yeah, it doesn't work, Mark.
Yeah, but anyway, truly, Tony is amazing in terms of his dedication to this show, and he literally slugged through 2 hours of traffic to get here. And so because of the traffic delay, he arrived at the same time that the show went on. So there's that. Thank you for all the ways you support us, and I'll get to super chats. I'll get to super stickers in a moment. I do want to mention David Katz is joining us in the second hour. David, of course, the former assistant special prosecutor, former federal prosecutor. He'll speak to the special counsel that has been assigned to the Trump case. It's very specific. It's January 6th, and it's the documents. And I believe, and again, I understand that there are pros and cons to the assignment of the special counsel, but I think it's undeniable that this slows the process down. Even people who think the special counsel is a good idea have talked about the process being slowed a bit by it. Okay, and I go, no, Mark, he's going to use all the information and evidence that's already been collected by the January 6th committee and also by the ongoing Justice Department investigation. I get it. The guy he's over at The Hague. He has to come back. He's not going to do anything over the Christmas holiday.
Why are you yelling?
You had a huge, the thing.
Why are you yelling?
The thing about, I'll talk to, anyway, Katz will tell us the realities, because there are also some legal realities related to this. That is, paperwork that has to be filed, legal motions that have to be filed. So all of that still to come. Hey, in Danville, and if you're watching in a place that is not the Bay Area, we welcome you as the grand reach of our big Mark Thompson show goes around the world. But Danville is an East Bay community. It's a suburban community, wouldn't you say, Kim? It's a,
Yeah, it's in East Bay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of a little upscale.
Right, exactly.
It's near where Brett lives.
Right. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's true.
Brett's not too far away.
It's true. Brett is a Danville kid, I think. Anyway, there was I believe, a teacher there, wasn't there? The teacher who's
allegedly
child molestation charges. Yeah.
That took a turn.
As it turns out, the staff and even some people were well aware of this guy being an issue, and students warned administrators about inappropriate behavior by this teacher, they say, who's now facing child molestation charges. He whispered to girls who were there on campus, 2 freshman girls, he whispered, "You are lucky you guys are hot." More complaints followed. Another girl complained. There was a complaint from a parent of another girl. They reported alleged inappropriate behavior. He's this 41-year-old biology teacher. He also coached cheerleaders in Danville and San Ramon. School administrators failed to do anything. And, of course, they kept him in the classroom. Eventually, they transferred him to a nearby middle school.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, it feels very Catholic Church. The judgment call may have had devastating consequences, they say. Contra Costa prosecutors now allege that Mosby went on to sexually assault a 13-year-old girl in a Diablo Vista middle school.
No.
Yeah, one of 5 young accusers to come forward. Another of them is the girl that he'd called hot. So you see how this sleepy upscale community, has to face down the situation with this molester, and they warned school administrators about the molester. That's the outrageous part. So
sounds like the Catholic Church.
That's what I don't understand. It's very Catholic
Churchy. There's another upscale community in the East Bay. I forget whether it's Orinda or Lafayette, but they had another problem like this where they had the complaints come in from the girls that this teacher was acting inappropriately, was touching them in a way that made them feel uncomfortable. It went on more than that. but they never did anything. They allegedly investigated. Oh, it's no big deal. Oh, we'll switch them to another classroom. Oh, whatever. Why don't schools take this seriously? I mean, are they afraid that it somehow is going to blow back on them? So they try to minimize the public relations nightmare that it is and then just let it go until it turns into a disaster?
Yeah, the answer to that question, the real answer is they want to protect the institution. And so the institution is the school. You saw it in the case, a very high-profile case, and there might be sort of a grotesque examples of abuse in the case of Sandusky at Penn State.
Yep.
And you saw them close ranks around the institution of Penn State, right? The school. And that's why denial and tamping down any kind of issues, that's why that's the default position. Because the minute the school starts taking on real water, they can sink. And all those administrators are on the line. The school superintendent is on the line. So you see how people who are associated with the school administration or any institutional administration, this is my point. It happens with the Catholic Church, with the institution of the Catholic Church. What do? They try to protect it. So they move the guy. They they literally pay off and pay out monies to those who are accusers to keep them quiet. And I think in this case, the institution, it's a big word, like you'd think, no, but the entity of the school is trying to protect itself. So I think that's what's going on there.
Because it happened in Sonoma County at kind of a fancy high school where it costs $50,000 a year to go at Sonoma Academy. And how many times does it have to happen where the school at the end looks back and thinks, realizes if we would have taken care of it at the beginning, we would have had a complaint, right? We would have had an investigation. We would have had someone that we, called the police and had it dealt with instead of letting it go. So how many times do we have to go through this until schools get the message?
You're so right about that. And it's such a default position that I don't know that it'll ever change. So many people have an interest in not handling it, steering away from the skid, PRing it away. But it's really a sad thing because these are real kids who are on the other end of this. And, you have lives that are forever changed and even in some cases ruined because of this.
Yeah, well, you're making your school more important than your students. And I think that's awful.
It is awful. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Yeah, have a great time. Yeah. Hey, that NBC News correspondent who covered the Paul Pelosi hammer attack and had that story that was totally bogus, the gay thing and all the rest. I have news about him, and I'll share that news next, okay? Still have David Katz coming up in the next hour as well as we continue on a Tuesday. Smash that like button like a boss. I don't think I have my smash it.
Smash it.
I do?
With your iron rod. Smash it. With your iron rod. With your iron rod.
Well, we do have her. I know that's a really bad news type thing for many of you who don't like her.
Smash it with your iron rod.
We need you to hit that like button.
Oh my gosh.
Hit it.
Are you kidding me?
Smash
Absolutely smash.
So hit that like button like a boss, and we will have Kim's news. I don't know that we have. You say I do? I've got the. Okay, we'll try it. We continue. Thanks for being here on our big Tuesday show, The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
From the Mark Thompson News Network, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. The nation's airports are crowded today as Americans head out for the Thanksgiving holiday. This after most restrictions due to the pandemic have been lifted. It is expected to be the third busiest travel period for the holiday in the last 20 years. Dr. Anthony Fauci says he gave it his all during his decades of public service. The White House chief medical advisor telling reporters he left everything on the field during his time as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Dr. Fauci taking part in today's White House briefing for likely the last time as he is set to retire in December. No damage or injuries reported after a powerful earthquake rocked Mexico's western coast. The USGS says it was a magnitude 6.2, hit off Baja California near the city of Ensenada at about 8:40 this morning. People reported feeling that one as far north as San Diego. The driver accused of killing one person and injuring at least 16 others says his foot got stuck on the gas pedal when he slammed into an Apple store near Boston. Bradley Rain being held on $100,000 cash bail after being charged with reckless homicide. And here's the interesting part. He says he was looking for an eyeglass store at the time of yesterday's deadly crash. Yeah, I think maybe you need to see a little better. Maybe get the glasses before you get in the car. There's a major cryptocurrency exchange that filed for bankruptcy, I can say it. They say they don't have enough cash on hand to settle their huge debt. FTX says it has about $1.24 billion as of this last Sunday. A previous filing revealed that's less than half of what it owes its creditors. And speaking of FTX, Coinbase has lost more than a quarter of its value in the last 4 trading sessions as investors fear more fallout from FTX's collapse. That's even though the CEO of the San Francisco-based online exchange says Coinbase doesn't have any material exposure to FTX. The U.S. Navy left something pretty precious behind. They're confirming that a boater spotted an exercise torpedo floating off the California coast near Dana Point Harbor. A team of explosives experts recovered it. They determined it wasn't live. The Navy says while the torpedo posed no real threat, most of those dropped during training are usually retrieved. Oops, they left one behind. And California's Dungeness crab season is on hold in order to protect humpback whales. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife announcing the November start of crab season will be delayed until further notice from the Mexican border all the way up to Mendocino County. It's the 4th year in a row the season was delayed to keep the whales from getting entangled in trap and buoy lines. And there is a Missouri man in the stupid criminal department headed to prison after pleading guilty to bank robbery in which he wrote his demand note on his birth certificate. Genius hour. Authorities in Springfield say Michael Conley Lloyd pleaded guilty to the bank robbery, which he says he committed to prove a point to his girlfriend. Never said what the point he was trying to make was, but he admitted to stealing more than $700,000 from a bank this July and apparently had committed the robbery while wearing an ankle monitor from a past offense. He now faces up to 20 years when he's sentenced. The news sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, Steve's your guy. He's at 888-TAX-STEAL, or you can catch him online at moskowitzllp.com. From the Mark Thompson News Network, I'm Kim McAllister.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
There's never been anything like this. There has never been anything like it. This great movement of ours. Never been anything like it, and perhaps there will never be anything like it again. There's never been anything to compete with what we have all done. There's never been anything like this.
Never been anything like this. Mark Thompson here on this beautiful Tuesday. Glad you could be with us. Joe, are you kidding? Joe, $49.99? Wait a minute. No, quiet. I'm doing Joe right now. I'm not going to cry, Joe, but I'm close to crying.
I'm not going to cry.
Thank you, Joe.
Joe,
you got
you are the
band
coolest.
to come out back on stage.
Yeah, that's how good that was, Joe. And, you know, for the right super sticker, I'll bring the band back.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
I'm close. Thank you so much, Joe, for that $49.99. $19.99 from Yoga for Life.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I love Yoga for Life. Super sticker. I wish I could just get through one decent yoga session. That'd be great. Kent Vano, $19.99. What up, Kent?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kent. You're so cool. I appreciate that very much. Super sticker. Brian Vio, Sharks also win, Mark. That's right.
Thank you so much.
You're right, Brian. 99, in addition to Niners, in addition to the tie in World Cup, Sharks winners. Victoria D, $9.99 for the super sticker.
I'm not gonna cry.
I was thinking Big Dan Ashley shout out.
Big shout out.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Ron Diggity Dog, $4.99. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you very much.
I give you the
I
Will
love
Smith.
the name.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ron Diggity Dog. Yeah. Adam S. Herb, would you stop picking on Les?
Thank you.
What is that a reference to?
That would be WKRP in
That's
Cincinnati.
what I thought. Les Nessman and yeah.
Which you never go through this week without looking at an old clip of the turkey drop from WKRP. I mean, it's like
Yes.
it's a must, right?
Yes, it's true. It was the promotion that went bad, you know. Mike Henry, $4.99. Thank you, Mike Henry. Really cool for the super sticker for $4.99. Thank you, Mike.
As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
$4.99 super sticker.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dennis. You're awesome, Dennis Sheehan. Thank you very
Remember
much.
when
You're
radio
super
stations
sticker
had promotions departments?
Yeah,
that's
back
right.
then.
We had a. You can turn up your gain a little bit, John Daly.
I
Something
keep turning it up.
that I will seldom say.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit low, but
How would you handle this?
Well, we could
try
What you
ignoring
asked
it.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, that was the that was the deal on that on KRP exactly. I promised you an update on the smash it like a boss, of course, the like button. Smash it and subscribe. Get everybody you know to subscribe to the channel if you can. We're headed for it's a long road, but 10,000 subscribers, because when you get to 10,000, a number of different things happen, you know, in terms of monetization and thresholds. So yeah, Tony's nodding his head. Tony came all the way up
Thanks,
here.
Tony.
Thank you, Tony. And John is here, as is Kim.
How are you?
And we
Fabulous
appreciate
producer,
all
John
of your
Daly.
support. So suspended NBC News correspondent Miguel Almaguer breaks cover from his $5 million LA home and hops in his Porsche.
Wait,
right away,
NBC correspondent?
That's what I said. He makes he's got a $5 million home.
The
NBC
face of
correspondent.
Fox Television.
I am.
Why are you yelling?
I'm yelling because it is outrageous.
Why are you yelling?
He left his $5 million gated home in Studio City, California, in his gray 134,000 Porsche. You can tell they're not really on Miguel's side on this one. They've made us hate him just in the description. He was dressed in brown boots, dark pants, and long sleeve collarless shirt. We don't have the how much those things are worth. He is the reporter that has not been seen on screen for 13 days. His network removed his Today Show segment in which he quoted sources appearing to cast doubt on the immediate danger to Pelosi when cops arrived. God, they have all this stuff. It's the Daily Mail. They have this stuff about his house.
Do you think by calling out how much his house
down? You can turn your gain down a little bit, Kim.
Okay.
A little bit loud.
Do you feel like by calling out his house and car that they're saying somehow he may have taken money for that? Like, is there some inference of impropriety?
I think that they're just speaking about he's a super rich guy.
Yeah, maybe they're pointing out that he's a Republican and he's trying to own the libtards.
Oh, I think you guys are reading a little too much into it. I think they're just getting us all to hate on him because look at this entitled wealthy guy who's been suspended for a little while, and he also was the purveyor of bad information to the point that it was so bad that he was suspended, right? He's 45 years old. There's a lot of stuff about his house, 5,300 square foot home. It's gated, all of this kind of thing. They're under mounting pressure to explain their actions after retracting the controversial segment and suspending Almaguer. There's an internal inquiry, apparently, at NBC. He quoted sources, you may remember, saying the husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi did not immediately declare an emergency when he answered the door to police at the couple's San Francisco home after the 911 call. NBC removed the footage from its website hours after airing it, saying it didn't meet its reporting standards. It's nice that they decide what the reporting standards are. Yeah, their processes, protocols, and standards, though, involve deciding on stuff after the fact.
After it's published.
Right. We didn't. Right. It didn't meet our high standards at NBC. That's why we went with the story on network television, posted it to the website, then decided later that we should take it down. The suspension of Almaguer, who's been with NBC since 2009, has now reignited conspiracy theories surrounding the early hour break-in that was carried out or allegedly carried out by that Canadian national, David DePape, remember? One former NBC executive said that the station needs to be more transparent with its viewers about this error. NBC owes it to its audience to be truthful and not cover this up. Anyway, so NBC Bay Area is reporting this. I mean, I think they're not hiding it. So there's that. But it's odd to me that a journalist would be that far afield from facts, and there's no stopgap. I mean, there's no. You'd think that you'd have to source things, especially in the high-profile case of Paul Pelosi, to the point that you could be fairly certain that the information you were going with was accurate.
Maybe
right?
they could do a Dateline episode to find out where he got all his money from and how he lives in that gated community.
Yeah.
Well, he pretty much screwed himself. I don't know if I'm still too loud, but he pretty much screwed himself, because when you're a reporter, your word is your reputation. And if you get a story wrong like that, you're out. No one's going to trust you anymore. So enjoy your $5 million house, because that's pretty much what you get for the rest of your life in that career.
It is true. He was raised in Berkeley, says NM. I don't know if that's true. Is Almaguer from Berkeley? His story didn't pass the smell test, said Tom. Yeah, I think clearly it didn't. I mean, they took it down. And, of course, the pressing question in a 5,200 square foot place is from Mo Direct. I'm sorry, not from Mo Direct. Who asked how many bathrooms? There, Karen Q. How many bathrooms? So I don't know how many bathrooms, but it's got a gate and it's got 5,200 square feet when you get inside, and he's driving a Porsche. I'm guessing, what do you think? Maybe we can look. John can do that, and you can figure it out,
Google
John,
it.
and see how many bathrooms he's got. But that's the word on that. Elton John finished his big tour at Dodger Stadium, and Disney Plus broadcast the event live, but they took out Donald Trump's name. Disney Plus viewers who tuned in to watch Elton John's live broadcast of his farewell concert were surprised when Donald Trump's name came up in the closed captions. The former president's name showed up due to a technical error, but any references to Trump since then have been removed from the telecast after Disney Plus conducted an investigation into the incident. Following the results of the investigation into the matter, it was determined that Trump's name was not intentional, but an error.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
They don't clearly have sufficient. It's remarkable that we have processes, protocols, and standards that exceed those of major media entities. It was an error on an external vendor contracted for the live closed captioning. It was the result of autofill or autocorrect based on a keystroke, they say. That allegedly, I'll give it triggered the use of the former president's name. When John's fans tuned into the streamer to watch his last U.S. concert, they were taken aback to see Trump's name on the screen. There were no references to him during the broadcast. Several viewers took to social media sharing photos of the screen with the Donald Trump reference. He's everywhere, and apparently he made it onto the live stream.
We've never seen anything like this before.
We've never seen anything like it. There really has never been anything like
There's
it.
never been anything like this.
This really hasn't. Could there be a blood test for Alzheimer's? They're saying yes.
That's kind of exciting because there's really no way to know that you have Alzheimer's until your autopsy, right? I mean, they can diagnose you with a bunch of memory issues, but it's hard to know the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia, So
that's right. I mean,
that would be really exciting.
Kim's 100% right in the sense that you're suffering from some kind of dementia or that a family member is, but precisely what it is. I, though, asked the question, okay, then what do you do? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So there's a blood test that says it's Alzheimer's. What do you do? Is there a cocktail? Is there a constellation of therapies that can be applied to help produce some kind of positive resolution or more positive resolution to slow Alzheimer's? We told you about the Alzheimer's drug that was approved by the FDA, despite the fact that the research on it was shady at best. And so I'm unclear really how how knowing, you know what I mean, Kim, how that changes anything.
Sure.
But they say it is a potentially powerful tool to help diagnose Alzheimer's that affects 6.5 million Americans. The test detects tiny amounts of abnormal proteins in the blood, including a sticky version called amyloid beta. And that helps determine whether the pathological hallmarks of Alzheimer's are present in the brain. I'm hoping that in addition to diagnosing, this is also the hope of researchers, they'll be able to come through with treatment, some kind of treatment that really matters. Many neurologists say it's only a matter of time before these tests are adopted more widely, providing clarity for a disease that is notoriously difficult to diagnose. And then there's the question, would you want to know? Would you want a blood test when you're perfectly fine now to know that you are manifesting certain blood markers associated with Alzheimer's?
I would.
You would?
Yeah, because as you mentioned, you asked what if there are therapies and things you can do to make it better, to stave it off for longer. And I think there are medications. If you're diagnosed with early on Alzheimer's, there are some things you can do and some things you can take. Also, they say word puzzles, certain games, things help along the way. So if you could know early and potentially get in front of it, you might not make it so it's not going to happen, but maybe you could make it a little better for yourself and your family. Yes, I'd want to know.
Okay. I mean,
did you hear that Chris Hemsworth is going to stop acting because he participated in some show that was doing genetic testing about long life, and they found out that he's predisposed to it, and it hit him really hard, so he's taking a break from acting.
Is that right?
Yeah. Google it.
I did not know that.
Google it.
Why didn't you put that in the show, John? That's a big story.
Whoever is producing this thing has
no
idea what they're doing.
Put that in the show, John.
Because I was busy handling everything else. Sorry.
They told him first. They didn't announce it on the show, but then he said, "No, I want to do a segment on it. I want it on the show because I want people to know that this type of testing can really make a difference." And it doesn't mean what happened to him, that he has markers for it, doesn't mean he's going to get it. It just means his chances of getting it are greater.
Significantly.
Well, I mean, he's alarmed enough to stop. Yeah. I mean, to stop acting. By the way, and I'll want the guesses in the chat. If you're just joining us, the suspended NBC News correspondent Miguel Almaguer was spotted on camera. He hasn't been on NBC for 13 days since he floated the Pelosi story with certain facts that were not corroborated. So they suspended him. They took down the story. But they spotted him leaving his $5 million gated home in Los Angeles. So the question was raised, because we ask it often, how many bathrooms does that place have? And we don't know the answer. We did know the square footage. We have the answer now, thanks to fabulous producer John Daly. And I'm wondering now what you think in the chat. How many bathrooms does Miguel
I already put the answer in the chat.
What's that?
I already put the answer in the chat.
Oh, my God.
No.
I just don't.
All that drama for nothing.
Has no idea what whoever is producing this.
Well, you're about 5 minutes behind.
Has no idea what they're doing.
I'm just saying, why will you do this to me all the time, John?
They do this to me all the time.
First of all, you hold back a story like that. That's a huge story, the Chris Hemsworth story. Then you put the answer in the chat. Why do you put it in the private chat if you've already put it in the public chat?
To get you to mention it.
I will say, I'm glad you brought the story up
Why are
because
you
we got
yelling?
a great text from Jim Avila.
I see. I can't look at the chat all the time.
says,
Yeah, but Jim can save us in this moment.
Okay.
He can. He says this was a standards problem with Miguel, who's normally a solid reporter. The error by NBC is allowing a one-source story. I agree, Jim. If you have only one source, you better be married to it.
It's true. Although I really can't. Thank you for that, Jim. Right now I'm blind with anger, so I can't even think. But thank you for that. That is cool. I mean, the great thing about Avila is that he understands sort of the workings of journalism within an institutional news environment. So he can tell you, this is what should have happened. And, the correspondent has this much responsibility. The editor has that much responsibility. So there's all of that. The studio being rewired even as we speak right now. Tony is here doing the Lord's work.
Thanks, Tony.
He slugged through 2 hours of traffic to be here
Now
today.
we know what made Tony angry. It's the traffic.
Poor Tony. Yeah, that's right. I don't have that anymore. I do it.
I'm not gonna cry.
I took up that with him not going to cry. But I'm close to tears seeing Tony walk through the door because he does make all things possible. He can fix any technical problem. I should tell you, Tony is our dedicated tech guy. He has helped in so many ways. Now, you're going to help Tony with David Katz. He's going to call in. Can he call?
Oh, he's calling, not doing that.
He's not doing the link. Can he call my phone and then, or your phone, and then we can tie him in with Bluetooth?
Yeah, what time?
I'm sure that'll go well. That's at 11:03. We'll try to get him to call soon.
Do you want to place your wagers?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Will David Katz. This is good. All right. Will David Katz, who is amazing. It'll be an incredible segment talking about the special counsel appointed, talking about the Trump legal exposure. Will David Katz have technical issues? It's just a call, and I will count any technical issues that we have bringing him up as technical issues with his segment. Just a simple yes or no. Will David Katz have problems with his segment connecting in any way? Let's see. Yeah, don't have him call the old number. Oh, Chris says have him call the old number. Yeah. Natalie says yes. Beth says yes. It does feel like a very yes problem. Tony, what do you think? Come here. Will he have a problem or not?
In my defense, since I'm here, no.
Since you're here, you don't. Oh, okay.
So a yes vote would be a vote against Tony.
That's not true, though. Tony was there the last time.
Wait,
and,
now this is like a ballot proposition. I'm confused.
90% yes says huge in Japan. Yes says NM. A lot of people think they're going to be problems, Tony.
Well, you haven't taken a call with your board before.
We've never taken a call with this board.
There's going to be some setting that's out of whack. That's where I'm going.
I'm going to bet that he will get through perfectly. Sending positive thoughts to David Katz, says the Nikki Maduro show. Yeah. If it was Nikki's show, they'd have no problem. All right. Well, we'll see. Thank you.
You know what we will have? We'll have the play-by-play.
Now Mark's volume has gone down, says Beth. I don't know what the problem is, Beth. Does it seem like my volume has gone down?
Not to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Thank you. Beth, maybe your volume has gone down. Have you ever thought of that? Your life volume maybe has diminished a little bit, and you maybe want to crank it up a little bit so you're able to hear me? Why is it always me, Beth? Couldn't it possibly be you on your end? Yeah. I mean,
it's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
I don't think it's clear as crystal, but just saying.
You could start selling earplugs. Mark,
yeah.
Merch earplugs.
If you want any of the merch displayed here, the KJO and Exile t-shirt, the mugs, everything else is at getmarkmerch.com. Getmarkmerch.com. Everything else you can contribute here on YouTube. You can find our Patreon page. That's all at themarkthompsonshow.com. David Katz, the distinguished attorney, former assistant prosecutor at the federal level, he joins us next to sort out the entire situation with Trump, the special counsel, and the realities concerning a timetable as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. White House Chief Medical Advisor Anthony Fauci is urging Americans to get their COVID-19 boosters. He did so in what is likely his last briefing on the pandemic after he announced his retirement earlier this year. Speaking to reporters, Dr. Fauci said the data overwhelmingly shows the COVID vaccines are safe and effective, saying hundreds of millions of doses have been distributed in the United States. Vice President Kamala Harris plans to run with President Biden if he seeks re-election in 2024. While in the Philippines, Vice President Harris added that she and the president have done many things to help the American people during their time in office. Biden said earlier this month that he expects to decide early next year on whether to seek another term in the White House. The World Health Organization is warning another 2 to 3 million Ukrainians will be displaced as temperatures drop and Russia continues to attack the country's infrastructure. The WHO's regional director for Europe said half of Ukraine's energy infrastructure has been damaged or destroyed by Russia's bombardment, and millions are expected to leave their homes in search of warmth and safety. Today marks the anniversary. Well, anniversary is a bad word, but marks the date that the last American president was assassinated on. In 1963, President John F. Kennedy was shot while riding in a motorcade in Dallas, Texas. Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested for the shooting a few hours later and then was shot to death while in police custody by Jack Ruby, who was a Dallas nightclub owner. Regulators in the United Kingdom investigating complaints that Apple and Google control too much of the mobile browser market. The UK's Competition and Markets Authority said it will explore the company's stranglehold over browsing. The agency noting Google and Apple powered 97% of all web browsing in the UK last year. And if you haven't seen it yet, time's a ticking. Top Gun Maverick, set to land in living rooms very soon. The hit sequel film will debut on Paramount Plus December 22nd. The Tom Cruise-led movie, the highest grossing movie at the worldwide and domestic box office this year, bringing in more than $1.4 billion across the world. And this report is sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for both individuals and businesses. If you need help with taxes, Steve is available. You can call him at 888-TAX-DEAL or catch him online, moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
I have never heard of something like that.
There's never been anything like it. This great movement of ours. Never been anything like it, and perhaps there will never be anything like it again. There's never been anything to compete with what we have all done. There's never been anything like this.
Nobody has ever put something like this together that I've ever seen.
What up, everybody? It is hour 2. Yeah, you know, I love hour 2. Hour 2, we, Chip's got a show now. I feel like now when Chip goes long or something, a lot of you are all hanging out with Chip. I don't blame you. Chip's cool. Chip's real good. So, Bill Doherty, $10. Come on, Bill Doherty. How about thank you very much? How about, no, I need a thank you very much, Tony. You got to thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bill Doherty for $10. Lighting designer, almost famous. Whoa. And I bought your merchandise. Total supporter of your show. Keep up the good work. Come on, Bill. That's the kind of listener viewer that I love. Thank you, Bill Doherty.
Why are you yelling?
Go Niners! Enjoy your show every day.
Thank you very much.
Oh my goodness, that was a lot of thank you for Sharon Kidd. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right there. Thank you guys for the super stickers and the contributions right there on YouTube. You can hit it and you can make it work. Smash it like a boss with your iron rod, and you can also. That like button is simple, costs you nothing, and I appreciate the thumbs up. And as I also mentioned, this Thanksgiving season, we are doing shows, full shows for you right through the week. And all I ask from you is that you ask 3 people, maybe I'd love your whole, I'll look at this in a second. Your whole Thanksgiving table. You just have everybody take out their phones. They're going to have them out anyway, probably. You say, please.
Let us pray. Let us
yes,
pray.
before the prayer. Yeah. You say, there's a great show of patriotism that you could all display right now. Open up YouTube, go to The Mark Thompson Show, and simply subscribe. You never have to watch a minute of it, but just
Tony.
subscribe. Yeah. And that would help us. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. I know it's a long journey, but I appreciate all the ways you're
I'm glad you threw in the
supporting us.
patriotism thing because that brings in the conservative uncles.
That's it. I mean, I think that particularly at Thanksgiving, people respond to that. I was going to say to that crap, but I think the point is that there are ways to get through to people, and you never know the way. So thank you.
The baby Jesus, flag, turkey,
yes,
football, apple pie.
Mark Thompson Show.
There is nothing I look forward to more, and it sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not, than talking about Trump and legal machinations at the Justice Department and special counsels assigned and where the Trump case stands. There's nothing I like more than talking about that stuff with this guy. He joins us now by phone. Many think that this connection may not be clear because we've had technical issues in the past. They haven't had to do with David necessarily. But here he is, a warm Mark Thompson Show welcome for David Katz, everyone. David, good morning. Let's see if we connected. I don't hear David now, Tony. So those who've guessed bet against.
There we go.
They are winners right now. Yeah. David, can you hear me? David, still nothing. Nothing? Well, this is...
Well, David's on the moon. A lot of people don't realize that. So we have to get the satellite out.
We do use... we use technology that they used on the moonshot in bringing David in. Let me finish. And that was in the late 60s. Okay, so that's the technology we're using. You're doing okay. Now you're bringing him in you're hardwiring him?
Hello.
Oh, there's David Katz, everybody. Come on. How about it, David Katz? Good stuff. David, welcome. Now we hear you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm not on the video, though.
No, you're not on the video. We can do that next time if you want. It was just, we thought this was less of a high wire act, so we thought that this would be more dependable. Were Tony not here in studio with me, I doubt we would have even gotten this all working. But Tony, thank you. I'm close to crying, Tony.
I don't count that as a technical issue. I mean, that was a blip, right?
All right.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, Tony. Thank you. It was just
relatively speaking to this train wreck.
Yeah. When you need 2 minutes, right. That's true. Maybe it doesn't rise. If you're grading on a curve, it might not affect. David, I want to talk about the situation with the special counsel and how a prosecution of Donald Trump might actually unfold. I'm wondering if you can give us some reality checks on this special counsel, on the timeline, and the real potential outcomes here.
Well, I think the most likely thing, we're getting that echo.
Oh, you're getting an echo? He's getting an echo, Tony. Anybody bet on echo in the chat room? Nobody bet on echo?
Bingo. No,
yeah.
It wasn't a bingo.
Hang on a second, David. We'll have this. I think it's easier just to send him the link next time, and he can join via...
Well, then we talk like this and...
Yeah, maybe.
That's
but
always
I'm going to suggest sending the link. In a year, we'll look back on this and laugh. We really will. We'll think of all those technical problems. Of course, the show will have been abandoned by then.
So, can you hear me without the echo now? I think you can.
Yeah, I hear you now. I hear him now. He hears without an echo? Good. Yeah. We didn't hear the echo on this end, so we're good.
Hey, we got the play-by-play I was looking for.
Okay. Are you good, David? Can you hear me?
I am.
Okay, let's talk to David. Okay.
Prosecutor who's just been appointed. He's a very interesting person. You know, he actually was associated with the Senator John Edwards prosecution. That was a case that ended up having a hung jury, and then the Department of Justice didn't proceed against Edwards. But you'll remember that notorious case, really. But he was someone, who'd run for vice president on the Democratic ticket. He was a very high a public official himself. Then he was also associated with the case of a senator or governor from Virginia. That case went up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they said there had to be more of a quid pro quo in a political bribery case. So he's certainly, been down that road where, he's fought the battles. He also has not endeared himself to the press because I guess he served some subpoenas on press sources because he felt that he needed that information. And of course, the press argues his shield laws, and, those can go either way in the courts. So he's certainly been shown to be an aggressive prosecutor. He's a career prosecutor. He's not someone who's gone back and forth, in big government jobs. He didn't get a corner office. I don't think he's going to go for a corner office in a huge Washington, D.C. firm, which is, of course, what happened to Mueller. The Mueller investigation at the end of the day went nowhere. It got kind of buried by Barr, who very adroitly took advantage of Mueller not making a recommendation. And then they went from there, as we all remember, to Barr saying, you know what, there really wasn't any obstruction of justice. Since you left it up to me, good, thank you. I, Attorney General Barr, handpicked by Trump, find there's no obstruction of justice. So there's a good reason why everyone's wary about how this is going to come out, right?
Yeah, you don't have the kind of political hack in Garland as Attorney General that you do or you did in Barr. But you have something I'd suggest here, and again, this is why I want to talk to you, because I understand that there are legal things that have to happen. There are processes that have to happen on the legal side, and that takes time. But it seems to me you have, one more thing now. Now there's a special counsel who'll preside over this that's going to take more time up. And as you begin to take time up, you see how you're rubbing up against an election, a general election, during which Trump will rise probably to the position of being the GOP nominee.
Well, I guess some people would fault Garland that he didn't do this appointment of a special prosecutor a year and a half ago. But I think we have to all remember the dynamics of it, which is that, first of all, the Mar-a-Lago case didn't really exist a year ago. They were negotiating with Trump. He was apparently having his front people. Trump was mislead the Department of Justice. He was getting subpoenas. Had the Department of Justice and Merrick Garland not gone through that process, Mark, can you imagine rush to judgment, railroading the ex-president? So I think certainly on that aspect of the case, at the time that was taken needed to be taken before you could have a special prosecutor. They needed to litigate that case. There was the judge handpicked by Trump down the road, the one that we call loose cannon. She did everything, I think, to obstruct the case and help Trump. Didn't work. Even the conservative circuit down there ruled against her. The Supreme Court didn't give Trump any relief. Now, as to the January 6th case, I guess you can find fault that the Department of Justice spent so much time on the marauders. They certainly needed to be prosecuted. But the reality was only a few of them were going to lead to Trump. Why not jump right to the few who might lead to Trump and see what you could do? The insiders with Trump, yes, they could have been given immunity before if they were given immunity now. I guess all that can be said on that was that I think that Liz Cheney, Thompson, Adam Schiff, that committee did a wonderful patriotic duty, and they shone a light, right, on what happened on January 6th and of Trump's complicity with it, all the lead up to it, Mark, all the fraud that then when the fraud didn't work, when the alternate slates, all the nonsense, the, the arm twisting of state officials, some Republicans who stood up to their duty and didn't go along with Trump's, subverting the count, subverting the delegates. Then Trump turned to violence. And then you had this January 6th, which was really dramatic. At the same time, the Republicans wouldn't even pursue it. Remember, Trump was impeached on this, and he was acquitted by almost all the Republican members of the Senate, whether one or two who would have convicted him in the Senate for this very impeachment, for this very insurrection. So, Mark, Attorney General I think Garland, he needed to have the light shown on it for himself, for his own deputies. I think that the January 6th committee did a really marvelous job of that. And so it got to the point where I think that as there had to be some progress on that case. So at that point, and that's only fairly recently, the last few months, Garland had to either go with it himself and his staff, his deputies, or he had to appoint a special prosecutor. And I think that given all of that, then he had to pick the right special counsel. Now, you mentioned the legal problems. Now this special counsel, who's returning from Europe because he's involved with cases of war crimes before The Hague in the Netherlands, he's got to come back. He's got to set up an office. He's got to select staff. I mean, loads of talented people will want to work on this case, but there is a certain amount of time to simply gear up. Yes, that's some more months. And then there's all these processes. Trump will fight it tooth and nail. He'll file every motion, every court you can imagine, delay. And yes, to try to run out the clock until he runs again and hopefully wins. If he somehow wins in November 2024, people say maybe if it goes really fast, he'll be in the penitentiary. Even if he were in the penitentiary, he'd pardon himself. He'd fire the special prosecutor. He'd assume office. If he could somehow win in 2024, even with this albatross around his neck, he would assume office. So this case has to move forward. But as I said during the Mueller probe, Mark, this is up to the people. This is up to the voters. This is up to organizing, registering voters, going out and vote. Don't wait for this guy Smith to save the country any more than people who waited for Mueller to save the country from Trump.
That's a fair point, but boy, I think the people have spoken in a sense. I mean, the people did speak in the midterms. The people spoke in the repudiation of Trump in the general in 2020. So I feel as though at some point I'm asking for the Justice Department to step up and actually do the work that they do with average citizens, which is holding them to account. And here we have Trump, who's essentially allowed to skate. He's right. He gets away with. And I'll tell you something else, David, and I push back on me on any of this stuff. They are not going to prosecute Trump. I know they have a special counsel dedicated to this. They are not going to prosecute Trump in any lasting way that would lead to a plea to a felony or any of these other things that you just know Trump's not going to do on this documents case. I don't care if he's got 11,000 of them. They are going to let him go one way or the other. Delay. Or now, tell me I'm wrong.
Well, I think that there's a problem, a practical problem, whether these two cases could be joined or whether they should be severed, even if they were joined by the prosecutor. It may sound highly technical, but think about the Washington, D.C. insurrection January 6th case. It seems to clearly have its venue in Washington, D.C. The other one seems to have its venue more likely in the Southern District of Florida, where Trump will argue it's a related case and ought to go back to his hand-picked Judge Cannon down the road, okay? Even if you can get around that problem and join the two of them up together and bring the January 6th insurrection case in Washington, D.C., and then you argue that Trump really committed the crime that we associate with Mar-a-Lago in Washington, D.C., that there was an affirmative act, that part of that conspiracy, that course of conduct as to Mar-a-Lago happened in Washington, D.C., because he made the decision in Washington, D.C., and he took documents he wasn't entitled to take in Washington, D.C. But just think of what his defenses are going to be. I didn't form that intent in Washington, D.C. I boxed everything up. I didn't, beyond a reasonable doubt, form the intent until I got down to Mar-a-Lago. I was still the president at the time that I did that. There's all these rules about indicting a president. I know he's not a sitting president anymore. You can see just off the top of my head, I thought of 2 or 3 motions that would be brought. Having said all that, it should all be brought, I believe, from what I've heard so far, in Washington, D.C. It should be brought well before November 2024. They should fight like hell in all the courts to not allow any of the delays that Trump and just laugh at the courts, just lampoon any court that delays the case in a very, lawyerly, right, scholarly way, but lampoon the fact that justice delayed is justice denied. And they need to get on with this. And there's a lot of rules that say criminal defendants cannot just kick the can down the road. Having said that, we criminal defense attorneys, and I'm one right now, are always accused by critics of kicking the can down the road, that any delay is good for the defense, that an adjournment is a win, and that's certainly going to be the ethos. That'll be the philosophy of Trump's lawyers, and he'll get very good ones, because if he's going to spend that $200 million that he got from his base in the great ripoff, believe me, he's going to spend it on protecting his own hide and keeping his lovely orange head out of the penitentiary.
We're talking to David Katz, who is the brilliant former assistant U.S. attorney. You can see him on Twitter at David Katz Law, and he's just a great legal mind who visits with us on Tuesdays. We really poached him from Pat Thurston when Pat's show went off the air. So he's so graciously joining us by phone. Tomorrow we'll have a video feed. I want to just mention something that was mentioned in the chat, and that is that Smith, apparently the special counsel, is in court today. So even as we talk about the slowness of the process, this is to essentially talk about the 11,000 documents seized at Mar-a-Lago and the special master, who is dealing with the documents. So they're going to consider whether a special master should indeed be reviewing the 11,000 documents seized at Mar-a-Lago. This is after the Justice Department now is going in saying the special master is unwarranted, essentially, in this case. It's kind of an argument that we saw them tap out on already, right, David? I mean, the Justice Department sort of has allowed the special master forward in reviewing these documents.
Well, the big concern that the Department of Justice had, Mark, about the special master and the whole way that Judge Cannon down there in the Southern District of Florida was handling the case was that the national security would be delayed. But they managed to, with the help of with the order of the Court of Appeals down there, the Federal Court of Appeals, the review for national security problems with those documents has resumed. And so in terms of slowing down the actual prosecution of Trump by going through the documents, that got slowed down anyway by the special prosecutor that now has to get up to speed. No matter how brilliant he is, no matter how talented his staff is, obviously it's a period of time to get up to speed.
Sure.
But my thought about that case, Mark, is that you would take the documents, if you were the prosecutor, that would shield or that in Trump's mind would shield him from prosecution for January 6th. You take the documents and you would highlight them. And so there would be one January 6th conspiracy. That would be all the things that he did that were terrible January 6th, fomenting the insurrection, encouraging people, the big lie that he told and exploited Trump did. You would take all that, and then you would have another act in furtherance of the same conspiracy to cover it up. That would be taking the documents that he had no right to that would implicate him. So you would focus more on the documents that implicated him. And by now, they'll be able to put together what document implicated him. So, for instance, if there was something that showed that he talked to the Secret Service and told them to do this or that, documents that the Secret Service has since destroyed, not turned over, that we've had this whole back and forth about, and ultimately you can't get these text messages that they sent. Well, who knows? Trump may have taken documents that shed light on that and that hurt Trump. So you see how it would all dovetail with January 6th and the things he did in furtherance of January 6th. On January 6th, this retention of documents that he wasn't entitled to, not turned over, would be part of the cover-up, and it would all have its venue in Washington, D.C., and it should all be able to move forward promptly. You know, one thing is that the previous special prosecutor, Mueller, he had every impediment in the world compared to this fellow. First of all, he was a career Republican. Let's not forget all about that. And the Republicans who chose him, like Sessions, had a pretty good idea of what they were getting with Mueller. And what they got with Mueller was, let's face it, no prosecution forcefully recommended as Trump. There's no reason to think that this fellow Smith won't forcefully recommend prosecution of Trump. Now, at that point, you know, the attorney general still has to sign off on it, but he'd have a report in his hands. And of course, he has no motive to not go forward with it. Barr had a huge motive when he got the report to issue that, that sort of a 4-page summary that was not a summary, that misdirected the public and, it gave Trump the opportunity to say, no collusion, no obstruction, right?
Right.
It gave him the basis to say no collusion, no obstruction. He won't have that this time around. And there was also the constant threat like Comey was fired, like these other people were fired, that Mueller would be fired. I mean, every day Mueller was walking on eggshells, and so was his staff, that they'd simply be fired. There'd be a Saturday night massacre, and what's going to happen then? This won't have to walk on eggshells. So he should move forward vigorously. And at the end of the day, my assessment as a former federal prosecutor is that there's really an overwhelming case against Trump for many aspects of inciting that insurrection. I mean, it was another one of his crimes that Trump did right of our face. We all saw it happen. The law is not an ass. The law should get it right, just like we all got it right. This is not jumping to conclusions. This is not rush to judgment. We saw what happened. We saw his speech on the ellipse. We saw that Cassie Hutchinson's testimony, he wanted to grab the square. He wanted to lead the charge in there. He wanted to help intimidate Pence and the other people so that they wouldn't certify that election that Biden had obviously won. And then you have all the not tamping it down, the watching TV for 3.5 hours while they were going hang Mike Pence and everything else. So let's not forget what we saw and heard, all of us, what the January 6th committee proved, that there is an overwhelming case, I believe, that Trump is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of federal crimes for which he should be prosecuted in Washington, D.C., and no reason it can't happen before November of 2024. That's 2 years away.
I talked about in the last hour the case of this teacher who molested, allegedly, these kids. It happened in Danville. And then I talked about the institution protecting itself. And I mentioned in the case of molestation, the Penn State case, where Jerry Sandusky was, he was doing it for a long, long time. And the university was protecting the institution of Penn State, and that's why they didn't act. And then the Catholic Church protects the institution of the Catholic Church, et cetera. So what does that have to do with this? Let me just make my point, and that is that I think there are institutions in Washington that protect themselves the same way. You have a lawless president who sowed the seeds of an insurrection, of a coup. He did it in a lot of different ways. And you have this obvious thing that he did where he takes the 11,000 documents. My God, you got video, you've got, and the government tried to negotiate with him. That's, to me, the institution protecting the other institution of the presidency. And my point is, David, I worry that the effort to protect the institution of government and the solidity of government and democracy and all that crap that they serve up to us all the time, I'm worried that jams the enthusiasm with which they prosecute or with which they hold someone who was president of the United States to account for what he did.
Well, you look at this prosecutor, and as I say, he was involved with the prosecution of John Edwards. People were very upset at Edwards at the time because of the whole thing with his wife and his infidelity and her cancer diagnosis, right? At the same time, I had my real doubts that the Edwards case made a lot of sense. To me, that was overzealous prosecution.
He was prosecuted. Remind us what he was prosecuted for.
So he gets money from somebody who wants to give him $1 million because she's a huge fan of his. And then he spends the $1 million not on the campaign, but basically on paying hush money to his mistress. And so it was a little bit like, it's so funny because the Republicans talk about what Trump was guilty of, I believe guilty of, allegedly guilty of, what Michael Cohen had to plead guilty for, what he went to prison for, which was paying this hush money to the two girlfriends of Trump so that they wouldn't come forward right before the election and say they'd had affairs with him, right? It was a misuse of campaign contributions. Completely lampooned and laughed at by the Republicans as being a basis to prosecute Trump. And yet it was used by this prosecutor as a basis, this fellow Smith, who just got appointed, to prosecute John Edwards. Ultimately, unsuccessfully, Edwards was never convicted of anything. The case was dropped after a hung jury. He also went after the governor of Virginia, who was a Republican. So he does, and he gave the press a real hard time in a way I don't agree with. My point is, he seems like he's very aggressive. He doesn't seem like any kind of shrinking violet. And I think that he and his staff will go after Trump vigorously if that's what the law and the evidence is. And from what I've seen so far, the law and the evidence are pretty overwhelming. So I don't think that people should despair. But at the same time, the point that I was trying to make before, that we shouldn't also hope that the ultimate remedy to Trump getting power again is going to be Smith. That, you know, you look at the elect. Trump was he was a drag on the Republicans, and yet historically they still managed to eke back a victory in the House, much less than people thought. No red wave, but enough that they can drive the administration crazy. They can't do much else. But, you know, we're going to know about Hunter Biden until our ears bleed, right? And they're not going to let Adam Schiff, who's a totally distinguished member of Congress, even be on a committee. It's all payback and pettiness. But so now Trump runs again, and 3 or 4 people run against him. You know, Nikki Haley and Pompeo and DeSantis down in Florida. And guess what? He ekes out a victory again, and now he's the nominee in 2024. And then either Biden or, let's say, Harris run, and they just end up not being a very popular candidate. And lo and behold, right, the same thing. They win by 10 million votes they win by 10 million votes, but the Electoral College just ekes out a victory for Trump. I mean, people need to be aware Trump would take office again. And it's a really scary thing for those of us who lived through 4 years of him being in office and the run up to it and everything he's done since. So that's why I just always say, organize, vote, take the issues seriously, and do everything you can to make sure that Trump doesn't win the primaries and doesn't win the election. And that's something we can't all just sit around and wait for Special Prosecutor Smith to save us from.
Fair enough. Fair enough. He is David Katz, the former assistant U.S. attorney. You can see him here or hear him here on Tuesdays. Next week, we're going to go for the entire shooting match, right? We're going to go for video and audio. So it's something to look forward to. I know. It's exciting. But for now, David, thank you so much. You're so generous. Love your takes on things. They're so important. And we wish you a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to all, and great to be with you, Mark.
All right. See you, David Katz, everyone. Yeah. Tony, you'll have to come over and disconnect whatever has to be disconnected. Smash the like button like a boss. I don't know what you want to... Tony, ladies and gentlemen, please. Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, Tony.
Yeah.
Look at him go.
Look at you go. Yeah, very impressive. Okay. Well, Kim's news is upcoming. Can I have Kim's? All right. Cool. Smash the like button. Thank you. We're building the plane while we fly. It's our brand new studio. And Tony is our brand new dude who's making it all happen. Everything okay? All right. Thank you. Don't forget, God is your co-pilot. Or maybe God's your pilot, you're the co-pilot. I never could understand that. Anyway, smash it like...
Smash it with your iron rod.
Smash the like button.
Isn't it dog is your co-pilot? Have you seen that bumper sticker?
No, I haven't. Dog's your co... Oh, yeah. Well, I mean...
Wait, Jesus is walking with you on the beach.
Oh, yeah.
We continue. Some special shout-outs next. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
From the Mark Thompson Show Network, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL. The White House is renewing its push to ban assault weapons, that following the deadly mass shooting in Colorado Springs. Pretty busy day at the airports around America today. Travel experts say it is this year's Thanksgiving travel season will be the third largest in the last 20 years. After a long legal fight to force his testimony, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is finally appearing before a grand jury in Georgia today. His testimony was sought by prosecutors investigating former President Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 election results in Georgia. Former president narrowly lose a state to Joe Biden. Railroad unions and management heading back to the bargaining table in an effort to head off a national strike in December. The Biden administration had praised a tentative deal in September to resolve disputes about pay and working conditions. At that time, the White House warned a nationwide strike could cripple the economy. America's top diplomat is defending a claim of immunity for the Saudi crown prince. Mohammed bin Salman has been named in a lawsuit brought against him by the wife of Jamal Khashoggi. He was the Washington journalist murdered in 2018. Speaking in Qatar, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said it has been a long-standing legal practice that a head of state should be immune. Mazda plans to invest more than $10.5 billion in electric vehicles. It also wants those EVs to be up to 40% of the total global sales for Mazda by the start of the next decade. In California, the Franchise Tax Board has released the final group of dates of payment for California inflation relief checks. Those who receive their payment on their debit card should get the payment some point between now and January 14th of next year, depending on what letter their last name begins with. It may be after the new year before California penalizes oil companies for their record profits. Governor Gavin Newsom will convene a special session of the legislature December 5th. But according to CalMatters, much of the action in December will involve the swearing in of new members and other organizational items. State Senate Leader Tony Atkins telling CalMatters the discussion about a windfall profits tax on big oil producers likely won't happen until January. And a Jeopardy winner from Oakland doing it again. Amy Schneider clinched the Tournament of Champions title last night, calling it an amazing feeling. The 42-year-old,
it was pretty dramatic, I have to say. I saw it. Yeah, well, you know, I had to go back and forth between the Niners game and Jeopardy. It was tough. It was like two. Fortunately, the Niners game was so one-sided that I could flip over to Jeopardy a little bit. Yeah, it was really cool. It was close.
She beat another player from the Bay Area and one from the Central Coast. She won $250,000 and becomes the most successful woman, a female contestant ever, with a record-breaking 40-game winning streak. Schneider holding the number 2 spot behind Ken Jennings.
Now, is she going to become someone who is the leader on our Patreon site, do you think? I mean, might
he
she
should call her up. Hey.
Yeah, really step up. I mean, come on. I think
there's a hint of desperation. I really do.
It is desperation. I'm desperate. And so
maybe we can get her to click like and subscribe, you know?
Yes, at minimum, it would be nice if she did that. But I think even Andrew He, who is a San Franciscan, who made a serious run, I'd love to have him as a subscriber and contributor and a joiner in the chat. And, of course, a Patreon, you know, I'm just saying.
I think there's a hint of desperation. I really do.
I am desperate. All right. Yes, you're right. Okay. Anyway, congratulations to Amy. Yeah.
Yes, we love Amy, and congratulations, and we love to do that from the Bay Area. The news sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. And if you are needing help with your taxes, Steve is the one to call. 888-TAX-DEAL or online moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man! Pull up those pants!
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Call me a liar? Now what you call me?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, your pants are on fire!
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir?
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing?
Do you have a secret talent?
Isn't anybody but a weed?
100% effective. How about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
Right on, right on, right on. Welcome back. It's our final half hour. Jim Avila. Jim Avila is one of the most awarded journalists that has ever drawn breath at the network level. And he listens and contributes on the show. Kim's News is the best news, multi-sourced. I get it. It's a reference to Miguel, whatever his name is.
But I don't care what he's trying to say. He's referencing Miguel. I'm going to take that compliment, and I'm going to breathe it in for the next week. I'm going to love it.
Very good. I think you can breathe it in. Are you kidding me, Kevin Hobbs? Wait a minute. Kevin Hobbs.
Uh-oh. Tissue? You need a tissue?
I'm not going to.
I'm not going to cry. You are. You're gonna.
I'm close at $81.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
I'm saying that is cry-worthy.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
Kevin, how many ways to say I love you?
Big shout out.
Big shout out. I give you the Dan Ashley big shout out.
Big shout out.
Thank you, Kevin Hobbs. Wow, we've had a couple of $50 donors, and Kevin with this 81. Thank you. Elwin, thank you. Always watching, always listening, always contributing. Thank you, Elwin.
Thank you,
Thank you, my friend. Still a great name, Elwin. So, the tissues were all smashed by an iron rod, says the point.
Well, that's how they make
You
the
do need
pulp.
to smash it.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
If you could hit the like, even if you're watching in replay, we'd appreciate it. And by the way, if you're watching in replay, you might have been, or you regularly watch in replay on YouTube, noticing yesterday that we didn't have the chat up. I explained it at the beginning of the show, but essentially because we were talking about COVID and vaccines, the AI, it knocks it out right away. And so it takes longer to essentially clear the chat. And John had to deal with them and kind of, say, hey, we didn't talk about anything that was...
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
It really is a Hal situation. The AI is just amazing. But anyway, so today there shouldn't be an issue. What was that?
I'm so sorry. Lynn Bloom says I should have had a spoiler alert for the Jeopardy story because it wasn't shown in the Bay Area till 2 a.m. because of football. So I'm so sorry if I screwed that up for anyone.
Oh, wow.
My bad.
Well,
I'm sorry.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
I don't know how you feel, but
I'd like
I
to
feel
apologize
as though
to the chat community, the Mark
I
Thompson
think you should
community.
apologize.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
I'm enjoying this. Let's hear your apology, Kim. I think it's...
my bad. I'm sorry. I couldn't feel worse about it. The Mark Thompson chat community means the world to me. And I just have to say that I feel horrible about this. It was sincerely not my intention to screw up the Jeopardy Tournament of Champions result for the folks of the Mark Thompson world. So
you didn't change the result.
No, my bad.
Wrong, period.
I'm sorry. And you know,
my bad. I'm sorry.
There you go.
Would you say you stand corrected?
Okay.
No,
I'll go
you
for
don't
that.
stand- All right.
I stand corrected.
Okay, there you go. Very good. All right. That was a good point. But look, this is tough. You try to cover the news. It's a Bay Area person. I saw it. But it's true. It was, I don't understand. Oh, it was on Channel 7. That's why. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
This is no picnic, no summer camp.
She only sourced one Jeopardy viewer who was not in
that's
this
true.
market,
Don't go
so
by,
you can't do a single
don't.
source report.
Well, I'm sorry if I screwed it up for even one person, but at least now you've got a great reason to watch. Mark says it's full of great ending and good times.
It's terrific.
And,
it's about the ride. It's about the journey, isn't it? Right. And Kim says she'll never let this happen again. So
no.
Yeah,
exactly.
You cannot say you love your country.
That's right.
Heads will roll at the Mark Thompson News Network. That's it.
Yeah.
I've had it with the staff over here.
Look, I hate to say it, but it's all over social media. So on some level, if you're in your phone at all, or it comes in as an alert.
Media.
Yeah, it's about.
There's some writers and editors over here.
Looking at your social media.
Yeah, exactly. So
can't be trusted.
Yeah, we tried to do our best.
A werewolf can kill a vampire. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. That did not come up in Jeopardy.
No,
that did not come up. This thing can kill a vampire. What is a werewolf? Should be the...
A werewolf can kill a vampire. Did you know that?
Yeah, so that's very, very cool. If you missed yesterday's show, I explained that, frankly, Herschel Walker doesn't get enough credit for that. So, God bless...
a werewolf can kill a vampire. Did you know
information like that. Big news for my weed smokers. Where are my weed smokers at?
Where are my weed smokers at?
Yeah. I've got some news for you, my friends.
Just an itty bitty bit of weed?
If you got caught with an itty bitty bit in Oregon and they threw your ass in prison, Oregon Governor Kate Brown is pardoning you, along with around 45,000 other people. All these people were convicted of possessing cannabis. No one deserves to be forever saddled with the impacts of a conviction for simple possession of marijuana, she said. It's a crime that is no longer on the books in Oregon. She's also forgiving more than $1.4 million in unpaid fines and fees. Joe Biden has been calling on governors to issue pardons for those convicted of state marijuana offenses. So those of you who are down on Uncle Joe, I mean, he's looking out for you if you're a weed smoker or if you're in possession of cannabis.
Get rid of that student debt. He's helping you out with pot.
Yeah, that's really...
hey, Uncle Joe.
Yeah, I mean, now you can, don't sweat that debt. Just stay at home and get baked.
Stay at home and get baked.
Biden has been calling on governors to issue pardons, as I said. It reflects the vast majority of marijuana possession cases. They're usually just small amounts of marijuana that are busted. Those under federal law, thousands convicted in D.C. because that falls under the feds. They're also, as you know, those who have been pardoned. That was because of Joe Biden. Governors of Colorado, Nevada, Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Washington State have taken steps to grant pardons to those with low-level marijuana convictions. That's something that a lot of you who are involved in this effort to legalize cannabis have been hoping for some time. California, Illinois, New Jersey automatically review criminal cannabis convictions, they say, and they expunge past records. Expunge would be a ding word, by the way. And it's kind of big news. That's out of Oregon. So very big. And, by the way, that was following ballot measures. In Oregon, they passed a ballot measure a few years ago. I mean, it was 2014 when they passed a ballot measure legalizing recreational use of marijuana. And it's taken all this time. I mean, I think it's a pretty long time. Don't you agree? What is that, 6 years? No, 8 years since that. I don't know. Is that something like
Google
right?
it.
Yeah. Since the legalization. So, anyway.
Well, they've been voting from home for a long time, so they do stay at home and get baked.
They
that passed
stay
in
at home, vote, and get
I
baked.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Anyway, that's good breaking marijuana news for all of you. If you haven't yet, hit the like button if you can. I got a cool email. Didn't I send you the email? Can we run it tomorrow? The picture of, we've had a couple of pictures of those of you wearing merch and the KJO in Exile t-shirt, and I promise tomorrow we will have that coordinated. Tony, will you be able to help us coordinate that? I'd like a little slideshow of these are really cool people. We have a very attractive audience. Everybody's very attractive.
And where are those pictures?
And where are those pictures I was supposed to see? I also want to know what...
I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see this week.
I don't know what the levels are and everything. You saw Joe Biden celebrated his 80th birthday on Sunday. First octogenarian president. Reagan was how old when Reagan... anybody? When Reagan left office, how old was he? He was the only one who's challenging Broadway Joe. Anyone? If you guessed 77, give yourself a ding. Yeah.
God, he seems so much older than that in my mind,
Reagan did, really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
I don't know. He had that thing where he said he didn't dye his hair, and his hair, he had a little gray at the end. I mean, he's close to 80 years old, and he didn't dye his hair, and he's, his hair. So 79, Julie said 79, Kirsty said 79, so you guys were close. 76 to Chris. Chris is the winner in that group. Yeah. But it was close.
Well, Reagan was in decline, right? He had Alzheimer's. So,
yeah,
people like to say that Joe's in decline. Well, compare and contrast.
No, I mean, Reagan had it and, copped to it, right? Sent a letter saying, hey, I'm sad to inform you that I've got Alzheimer's.
President Biden's granddaughter got married at the White House on the South Lawn over the weekend as well.
Yeah, that's really something. I say it's really something because didn't they just had the Trump wedding at Mar-a-Lago?
Yes.
So if they had gotten married, what was it, a year earlier? No, it would have to be a little more than that. They could have gotten married at the White House, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
There's never been anything like this.
That's right.
You mean that dump where you can't get a Diet Coke?
Mar-a-Lago is so much better than the White House. Believe me, I was holding my nose living there. The weirdest story that I've seen in the last day is a story out of Indiana. This is Fair Oaks, Indiana. A guy dies after falling into a manure lagoon on a dairy farm. That's right. It's a moment of... I think you should honor this guy by liking this video and liking this broadcast. A man from northern Jasper County, dead after falling into a lagoon of manure at a dairy farm. He was 30 years old, and by the time cops were there at 8:37 in the morning, he was already in pretty bad shape. Apparently, a piece of equipment rolled into the lagoon and became partially submerged. And they thought about pumping the manure runoff out of the pond in order to locate this guy who they knew was in this mass of manure. But it might have taken 2 days, they say, to drain it. So obviously the guy was in a situation where he required more urgent care. Yeah. They went through this pond. I mean, we say pond, you think of a small, it's large, it's vast.
Yeah.
They took a boat with a hook and they hauled him out of the lagoon once they found him. But it wasn't until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon that they found him. So he's, long since, right? Yeah, it's everything wrong with that story. The thing about dairy farms and farms generally with agriculture is there's so much, what do they call it, affluence? It's the...
Google it.
Yeah, I think you can Google it, but I'm pretty sure that's it. Excuse me.
It's the runoff, yeah?
Yeah. It's the runoff.
Affluent.
Yeah. We're having runoff at the Mark Thompson show right now. A little bit of runoff.
We have our own manure lagoon.
I mean,
we have our own lagoon of snot.
Google it. Yeah, Google it. You don't have to Google it. That's what it is. Okay, you don't have to Google everything. All right, you can Google it if you want to.
Google it.
And trust me, that's what affluence is.
Isn't that how the spinach became tainted?
Why are you yelling?
Yeah. Well, the spinach became tainted with fecal matter. Right?
Yeah.
The problem with all of these things is that's just basic cross-contamination or contamination, like that's why they tell you to wash your hands. And when they're telling you to wash their hands, they're really telling their workers to wash their hands. Because when you get fecal matter in food like that, that can lead to all sorts of...
It's like the sign in the bathroom at Taco Bell.
Thank you.
It's not for you. It's not for you.
It's not for you. Exactly.
Nick would like to note that effluence is a ding word.
Effluence most certainly is a ding word, and Nick, you're 100% right about that. And that is the top percentage, 100%. Anyway, speaking of, this is a situation where you had a lot more than just a little hand-washing situation. Guy fell into a manure lagoon. So,
yeah, that's not on the brochure.
It's not. No. You can only hope they were paying him a decent wage and that it makes it to his family. Something tells me they are not. I was just going to make the point, though, that, it's that runoff from all of this animal agriculture that has contaminated fields and streams and rivers. I mean, literally toxifying all those things I just mentioned, and soil for that matter, because there is so much runoff. So you're talking about pesticide runoff, and then you're talking about the effluents associated with those animals. So that's why animal agriculture is it's a bad scene, you know. So that's the
What can you tell us about the scene?
It's a bad scene, Larry. The manure lagoon where the guy got he got swallowed up.
What can you tell us about the scene?
Yeah, there's no way getting out. There was no getting out.
I'm here reporting from the manure lagoon.
There's the assignment every reporter wants.
Oh my God!
Thank God for the N95 mask.
There's alcohol.
I don't think there is alcohol involved on this one. Maybe.
Dear
maybe.
Lord.
Let me check the chat line. Let me check the chat line real quick.
Why don't you just text it?
Wow, that was loud. Okay. I recall a report, I think it was from the FDA some years back. The average citizen consumes 57 pounds of fecal matter every year. Come on for some fecal matter. There you go. But can I skip that meal? That's all I'm saying. The one with the fecal matter? Skip it. Yeah. Oh, not at one time.
Well, if you don't, you'll be skipping quite a few after that.
Yeah, that's right. It's not good for you. Oh, is Steve going to join us? I love this. All right. I just see Steve showing up in the green room right now. Ladies and gentlemen, put it together. So excited that he's going to join us now in a moment.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Now, how about a little something for Steve Moskowitz? Yeah, Steve Moskowitz. Steve is the distinguished tax attorney. He's been working in the Bay Area and for people all around the country, for that matter, for over 30 years. And, you know, not just a CPA, but an attorney. So that, by the way, is an extremely important distinction. Steve, welcome. I'm glad we got you in, and we can have a quick chat here before the end of the show.
Thanks, Mark. And I'm concerned that I want everybody to enjoy their Thanksgiving, and people can't enjoy it if they owe money to the IRS and they don't know how they're going to pay it. And that's what I want to say to your listeners, that if you owe some taxes, whether it's an amount that you just think it's insurmountable, you'll never be able to pay, that's okay. There's all kinds of good options. And in almost all cases, we'll talk to the government for you. You won't have to talk to them, deal with them, having to do with them, and we'll make a good deal, whether it's just paying part of what you owe and they forgive the rest, paying in monthly installments, having penalties forgiven, leave you alone until you're back on your feet. There's all kinds of good deals, but don't stick your head in the sand and ignore it, because these new 87,000 IRS agents that are being hired have to be doing something, and that's a big part of what they're going to be doing.
And they're likely going to focus on taxpayers at the levels that we are. That is to say,
absolutely, that's their big focal point.
Right. They're not going after the super rich. They just aren't. You know, it's like, why? We're the low-hanging fruit for the IRS. So Steve can be your advocate and wants to be your advocate, and all you have to do is reach out to him, and there are a couple of ways to do it. 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. You can also find him online, MoskowitzLLP.com. And by the way, at that website, there's all kinds of other information, so there are ways to interact with Steve there. MoskowitzLLP.com, MoskowItz. Steve, we'll talk tomorrow, and thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep, Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Tell me what's on the Nikki show. Kim, you're going over there in just a minute.
Yeah, we're talking 49ers. Mm-hmm. Qatar, we're going to talk about homophobia in that country as it relates to the big soccer there. Taylor Swift tickets, the resellers are going to have to pay some money. And the co-founder of the Satanic Temple is joining the Nikki Maduro show to talk about new after-school programs, one of them here in California. Now, that is all coming up at noon. You can Google the Nikki Maduro show on YouTube and subscribe and like and join us for that conversation.
Wow. I love that. You got a lot of
stuff. A werewolf can kill a vampire. Did you know that?
Yeah. Are you discussing that? You're going to the satanic thing. I mean, it's kind of a satanic adjacent, the werewolf vampire thing.
It's
if
true.
it does come up, just remember a werewolf can kill a vampire. Got my KJO and Exile t-shirt today. Kim C.
Right on, Kim.
I don't believe it. Kim C with, how much is that? $49.99? Wait a minute. Oh.
Again?
I'm not going to.
Stop it.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
I'm not going to.
Do it.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
I'm close, though, and I really mean it, Kim. I show you a lot of love. I will give you a big Dan Ashley shout-out.
Big shout-out?
Yeah, so thank you very much.
I feel like we might need a Mark Thompson tissue box. That would be the next thing on the merch site.
Oh,
you know?
That's something. Yeah. We're always thinking.
You can bring out Tammy Faye.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe some mascara.
Well, I want to thank Tony, and I want to thank
Thanks, Tony.
Kim and
how are you?
John and all of
Daly.
you, because I know you've needed to exercise some patience today because of we've had technical stuff here and there. I really do appreciate the patience and the support. As I've said, we're going to do shows all week, even on Thanksgiving. And the reason is I want you to know we're committed to this, and we're going to give you shows. As long as we're all here, we're going to give you shows. And so there's stuff going on in the world. I've got Jefferson Graham coming in with the turkeys of the year on Thanksgiving. I'm talking about the tech turkeys of the year. So he's going to talk about that. So we'll get into technology conversations and more. Tomorrow, Jeremy B. White will talk the California playbook. We'll get into some California news at minimum. Is there anything else tomorrow that we've got scheduled, John? I don't think so, right?
No.
Is that...
Pretty good.
Yeah. John's gone home. John already gone home?
I'll be here. John's out.
John,
Fabulous producer,
Yes,
John
I'm
Daly.
very unhappy with everything I've heard today on your show.
Oh, okay.
Where's Tony? Bye, Tony.
Tony! Come here, Tony. Say goodbye to everybody,
I'm
please.
Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Bye, Tony.
Smash it on the way out.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me? Absolutely smashed.
It's fantastic.
It's a work in progress, Tony. Don't worry about it. We'll get it right. Yeah. Bye-bye.